Hi guys, and welcome to Hillbilly Military Modeling. Today we're going to start building the VW Type 82 Kubelwagen by Italeri in 1/35th scale. First thing I like to do as soon as I have decided on what model I want to build is take a good look at our instructions. And looking at these instructions, I see that we have a call out here, C, for the floorboards of this vehicle being painted flat tan, and the interior sides of the body would have been the original paint color, which should be German gray. So what I have decided I would do with this build, as simple as it is, there's only 4 assembly steps. We're going to make it just a little bit more complicated. What I want to do is I want to cut all these parts out and see if this can be assembled without being assembled on the chassis, and if it can be placed down onto the chassis after painting. That way we can do our flat tan color here for the floorboards, and then the inside of our body panels will be gray. So the first thing we're going to do is get our sprues out, and we're going to cut out the parts that we're going to need in order to do this. So, first part being the chassis and floorboard assembly. This is all going to be covered up. We're just going to nip that off right there, and I'm going to nip this just a little bit long, like so. And on this one, I don't think we can get in there the way we need to. I might be able to get into there. As you can see, they've got these sprues real close to the part. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and use our X-Acto knife, and we're going to press these out. In general, I like to cut them a little bit long, and then we'll trim them down. There's those 2 pieces, and let's see, is there anything else on here we need? No. So we'll set this aside. And we're going to need this. I want to cut these just a little bit long so I can trim these. And there's a very specific reason why I do that, and that's because if you use your sprue cutters and you cut this way, it pinches the plastic, which means that you may have a little hole or something that you may have to fill here. And so what you don't want to do it that way. If you get it from the side like so, there we go, you end up with a little nib, and not necessarily. That was a much cleaner cut. There we go. So that's much better. This is going to be on the bottom. I will caution you, if you use your sprue cutters like this, it may pinch up, and as they get older they get duller. So if it pinches up right here, then that will be a defect in the plastic that you're going to have to deal with. But you can take and cut it at a slight angle like that and not get it to bunch up. So That's why I cut them a little long. And now I've got very little to sand and worry about. So I'll go ahead and get this one cleaned up a little bit. And that looks pretty good. Got a little bit of flash right there. Can you see that flash? So, yeah. We'll get that with a sanding stick. That'll be fine. I mentioned this before in my review, and I'm going to show you again. If you can see this little spot right here, that'll have to be filled. It should be flat. We got a little divot there from the molding process, and the other one as well. There we go. And that'll have to be filled right there. And we'll clean this one up. And we can just sand that right off. Oops. Now this will be overlapped. So and I kind of go at it at an angle. That way my cutters are parallel to the surface. And we're just going to hit that with a sanding stick right there. Make sure that we're nice and smooth, because the part's going to go in, and we're going to want to make sure that there's nothing to inhibit a good meeting of the parts. And I like to go ahead and clean up the part as I cut them out. Clean off any sharp edges from the molds. This part does have some pushpin marks, but they're all on the bottom, and I really don't see, you can see right there, right there. I don't think that it's a big deal on this little model. I'm not going to fill those. I know there are perfectionists out there that will say, what? So we're not going to worry about that. The main reason why I chose this model is because the expense of it is under 15 bucks, and it's got some good accessories. There's 2 figures that comes with it: a tent, a table, a stool, a radio. And if you see my review on this kit, then you will see that that's the deal there. So I want to go over this real quick and get rid of that flash that we had right there. There's no flash there. These edges look really good, really good. I have had Italeri kits before that had a lot of flash, but this particular one is in really good shape. Now we got some push pin marks here. I don't know if you can see that. There's one there, but the engine cover will cover that. That's down below the seat. I don't think that one's going to be visible right there inside. I'm not really going to worry about those. So we're just going to go ahead and clean this up really quick. And on the front here, the little lip, we're going to get that off there. Then we've got just a little bit right there. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to clean that up. There we go. And there we go. So I always check the sides here a little bit. run that little ridge off where they come out of the mold. That way we get a good glue up surface. That's very important. And here where it was attached to the sprue, let's sand those just a little bit with this polishing stick. These polishing sticks are really nice because they don't leave a curl over edge and fuzz. So I really like that. And this edge here we're going to glue up, and let's see, you might be able to see it. There's a little edge there, and they're slightly beveled from the mold, which if they were absolutely vertical they would be a problem to come out. So we're just going to run that off real quick. Not a lot of sanding, just a little bit. And so that's nice, that's good. And here's my idea. There's a couple more pieces that will go in here, but I was thinking of doing this really like an aircraft model, where most aircraft modelers will tell you, I mean, it's pretty obvious from the construction method of aircraft that you got to do the cockpit first. And so it would be so much easier here if this was painted the vehicle color, which should be German gray, and then this being the tan brown color. Once you assemble this, getting that done is pretty difficult. So what we're going to look at right now is the feasibility of being able to assemble this vehicle without gluing the body to the chassis and the floorboard assembly there. So I'm just going to quickly put this together and see if we're going to have any kind of fit issues. There is something going, oh, there we go. It does help if you get it in the right place. Now, I typically use an airbrush for most things, and what I want to see is the feasibility of being able to put this together. As you can see, this is kind of really hard to do on camera, but yeah, I believe all of that will be able to be done. And we'll be able to, there we go. Yeah, we'll be able to glue that up and then install it onto the chassis. So that's the way we're going to go about this. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all glued up, and there's a couple more parts that needs to be put in. I'm going to put in part of the there's a panel that goes here, and there's a dash assembly that goes between these two parts, and also a stretcher or a stiffener between the body parts. And I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to recheck the fit and see where we're at. So stand by, I'll be right back. Okay, so we have assembled the body panels, and we put the gear shift in, the handbrake, the pedals, and I also put the suspension on while I was at it, and put some filler in those divots that need to be filled and sanded. So that's drying, but glued up the entire body panel assembly, and as you can see, we can remove it. This will allow us to go ahead and paint inside the German gray and onto the dashboard and everything. And then we'll be able to paint separately the floorboard assembly. So yeah, that worked off pretty good. Not bad at all. And so I'm going to take this off, and once this is completely dry, I will sand that down and get it ready and paint the interior, and go ahead and paint the floorboard. So we'll be ready to finish the interior and get it fully assembled. So off to the next step. Alright guys, we've got the interior painted on this, and did it in the fashion that aircraft modelers do it. I went ahead and, let's see if we can see. So we're all painted up, got our seats painted there. I went ahead and installed the windshield because it's going to have to be painted too. I masked it off where we don't want paint to spray onto it. And I also painted inside of here because when you look into the vehicle, if we don't put the top on it, that will be seen. And also the corner of the fenders here can be seen to either side of the rear seat. And so what we're going to do is we will finish assembling this, and then we will mask off the interior in order to paint the vehicle. And as you can see, we've got a pretty nice fit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the parts on, the headlights and all the other accessories. We're going to leave the wheels off and leave that for final painting. We're not going to put the wheels on until after everything's painted. So I will go and do that, and I'll be right back. Alright guys, here we are with our mostly assembled Kubelwagen. That's a tongue twister, isn't it? What I've gone ahead and done is the body panels has all been glued down to the chassis and fenders. As I told you before, we've already painted everything on the inside. We've attached the headlights, the blackout drive, lampshade, mirrors, horn, tools, tail lights, license plate holder. And this is as far as I'm going to assemble it, so that I can paint it. I can get into all these areas that I need to, and paint the wheels separately. And so yeah, it went together fairly well. No big gaps, no big issues. The only thing I will say is that when I did glue the body panel assembly onto the lower chassis, I did clamp it front and rear, but you know, you kind of expect that. One mistake that I did make is when I put these rear suspension arms on, I put them in place according to where the axles wanted me to put them, only to find out later that they were way too low, causing the vehicle to ride high in the back. So what I did was I took my the glue, I used Tamiya extra thin, and just softened up the joints where I had glued it and pushed it down using the tire assembly as a gauge, and come to find out that it needed to actually be all the way down right there. And so I glued that up, made that adjustment, and sometimes you got to do that. The good thing about Tamiya extra thin, when you glue parts on with it, you can come back and put Tamiya extra thin back over top of it, and it'll soften it enough for you to be able to make small adjustments like that. So yeah, that worked out pretty good. So I should have checked that when I was installing the rear suspension, but I didn't. but we're in good shape now. I did find a fit issue with the top. I was originally going to go with the top up, and the problem that I found is that, I hope you can see it, but right here the top is too wide and it doesn't present a real good appearance. So I didn't like that, so I decided to go ahead and go with the top being down, and that gives us an opportunity to weather and bring out more detail on the inside anyway, so that's probably a good thing. Ran into an issue when I put the top in its down position onto the vehicle, is that I found out that the gap, yeah, if I can hold that on there, I had a problem right here with the gap, and that was because of these stiffener ribs that are on this panel didn't allow for the top to seat. And I'll just stick it up there maybe so you can get an idea of the kind of gap that I had. And so what I did was I took and used my X-Acto knife, number 11, and scored it right through there to mark where I needed to remove some plastic. And if I can get it, there we go. You can see that I removed plastic right through here. That would allow this edge to seat down right where it needed to go, and gave a much better fit for the top. That way we don't have a great big gap, and these are the kind of things that you're going to run into. So that was the solution that I had, and it's going to come out really nice, I'm sure. So what we have, oh, one other issue that I did have is that when I went to fit the wheels on, I found out that these two spindles were too thick, so I had to sand them down a little bit so I can get a good fit. So I'm going to get this thing ready for painting, which I'll cover in the next video. We're not going to use that. And so I'm going to paint the folded top separately so I can weather it separately. And if you look at the box art, we're going to eventually end up with our desert tan, and I'll talk about that in the painting video, which is coming up next. But the top is still in the gray fabric, so it will be done in the overall vehicle color, the German dark gray, and then canvas weathered and everything. And we've left the wheels off, and so I've got that prepped as well, so that I'll be ready to paint, and I'll talk about all that in the next video. So we are ready to go to the paint booth. So thanks for watching, and please, if you would, if you like what you see here, go ahead and hit the like button, and if you'd like to follow me on YouTube, please subscribe. And if you'd like to be notified when I post new content, which will be the next upcoming video of painting the Kubelwagen, then go ahead and hit the bell. And really appreciate you guys watching.